Because of that not feeling loved, truly believing I was unloved and unlovable, it created this, this hole that needed to be constantly filled with these addictive behaviors that made me feel loved. That really became a pattern of using alcohol to help me get through, like, sex with people I didn't want to have sex with. Yeah. And we reach for the addiction to feel better, but the addictive behavior just leads to us feeling worse. Truly. And right. And so then it's like this cycle that, like, it balloons. It becomes worse and worse because I have to do worse and worse things to feel the high of addiction.
Right.
And then my life gets worse and worse. And so the need to get high intensifies.
Okay, well, let me just start by saying welcome to The Shift with Ben Brown. This is my guest, Alex Qin.
Hi.
I am so thrilled to have you here. My very first guest, the day before my birthday.
Aww.
We've both been in recovery for 7 years. And what I have realized is that these last 7 years have really been a series of shifts for me, right? Like one shift that led to one thing, that led to another thing, and led to another thing. And then I started to realize that sobriety wasn't enough. It just wasn't. It was like, okay, I'm not doing these behaviors that were kind of fucking my life up, but what's next?
Yeah.
I would love to just start a little bit about your background, as far back as you want to take us, because I want to hear about your shifts, because I know some things about you, but we don't know each other that well. Can you tell me, I know you were born in Paris.
Yeah.
And your parents were together when you were born?
Yes, I was born in Paris, but my parents actually lived in Hong Kong at the time. Just my mom is French, and she wanted to have me in this hospital in Paris because I was a test tube baby at the time is what it was called. Anyway, whatever. But I was raised in Hong Kong until I was 7 because my dad is Chinese. My mom's half French, half Filipina. And then they split up when I was about 7 and she moved us back to Paris. So then I grew up in Paris. And then I came to the U.S. when I was 18 for college, for NYU.
So from the age of 7, what was your father's role in your life?
Yeah, I mean, my dad, even before they split up, he wasn't around. This is a big part of, this is really what I'm trying to express with Thirsty Girl, my feature film that I'm about to shoot. It's the connection between childhood trauma and addiction, which is something that all of us, I believe, recovering addicts learn through the recovery process, is the connection between trauma and addiction. Yeah, so my dad wasn't around. He was just workaholic. And I also didn't want kids ever. And my mom was,
You didn't want kids ever.
My dad didn't want kids.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
that's why I got confused. I was like,
yes. And so he was a workaholic and also didn't really want to be a dad or know how to be a dad. And that wasn't really his fault. Like, he grew up without his parents, so that's the generational cycle. And my mom was both very loving and also very verbally and emotionally abusive. And so I grew up with one primary caretaker who was both my source of safety and also my source of, like, fear. And that created a very scary childhood environment, and also, like, constantly yearning for my dad. And then later, like, I had multiple stepdads who came into my life and then, like, left. So it was this childhood of yearning for father figures who didn't want me, which is why I turned into someone who always wanted, like, men that I couldn't have. And then growing up with someone who was both my protector and my abuser in a way. And so it was a very chaotic childhood. And then I had a little sister, and I did my best to protect her, but I also, in a way, was like her bully and her abuser.
How old is your sister now?
She's 2 years younger than me, so she's
okay.
32. I'm 34.
Okay. And your relationship with your mom, I'm interested in that. I mean, I'm interested in you saying that she was both a source of love and, I guess, loving at times, but also verbally abusive. Was she ever physically abusive?
Oh, yeah. Yes. In a very, like, Asian parent way, just, like, slapping. But it was scary.
Yeah.
like violence as a child is scary. Also, like
Oh, I know.
never
Yeah.
knowing when it's gonna happen.
Right.
That was, I think, the scariest part. I was always walking on eggshells. This is like, this is the thing I'm struggling with most now is my perfectionism. That's where I've been hitting like a new bottom in my recovery, and it really came from, I believe, this need in childhood to like be perfect constantly because
Right.
I did not, if I ever felt like I messed up, then I was at risk of being screamed at, like hit, and like shamed and given
Right.
the silent treatment. Heart of it is I didn't feel loved as a child. I felt not loved by my father and or future father figures. Apparently, I used to jump into the arms of strange men. Like we would go to the bank and I would jump into the arms of the guy at the bank and be like, Dad, like,
Really?
yes, when I was like a few years old. And I didn't feel loved by my mom because she was so hot and cold and like, scary. And because of that, not feeling loved, truly believing I was unloved and unlovable, it created this, this hole that needed to be constantly filled with these addictive behaviors that made me feel loved. It's like the high in the brain. I think it's trying to mimic the feeling of being loved, So the way I compensated for that as a kid was, my first addictions were probably like fantasy. I had these wild romantic fantasies that I would spend like all day in about like boys in my class or boys that I made up like in my dreams, and like carbs and carbs. Like I would like sneak pasta through the night. Yeah, and because that like also feels really good in the brain. And then
As a child.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then as soon as I could drink, like, oh man, the first time I had a drop of alcohol, that was it. I waited until I was like 16 or 15 to drink, which is late in France, because my mom drank a lot. And so I just didn't want to be like her. She drank and she smoked. And anyway, but I finally had a drink at a party and I drank a whole bottle of like Bacardi Bianco, which is like, I don't know why European kids drink that. Anyway, and I drank the whole bottle, and then I was like crying in the arms of this like strange boy being like, my mom doesn't love me. Like it's so, that first night is just like tells everything. And all my high school best friends had an intervention for me the next week. They were like, you have to stop drinking, or we won't hang
Immediately.
out with you. And so like literally after my first night of drinking, all my friends thought I was already an alcoholic. It took me a very long time to figure it out. But, oh yeah, and then the other way I compensated, and this one might be the biggest one, that's still now, is by needing to be the best, by needing to be special, by needing to be perfect. And so I was straight A student. I was always top in the class. If I wasn't, if I had like the second best grade in like art, I would like cry. If I made a mistake, a spelling mistake in my notebook that no one saw, I would start crying in class.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is very deep perfectionism.
And did your mother require that kind of performance? Did she
No,
say
not
that?
from school.
She didn't.
But she was always like, before every big test, I would say to her, like, Mom, will you still love me if I don't get a good grade? And she'd be like, what? Of course. Like, she didn't really care about my grades, mostly because you know what? That's interesting. Early on, primary school, first grade, my teachers told my mom I was slow. And that really scared her. And I think she like really tried to whip me into shape. And maybe that's part of what became this like overachievingness. I mean, partially it's because I was growing up between Paris and Hong Kong, and they had different like learning styles for reading. So I had to like learn two different ways of
Two very
learning how to
different
read.
places. Yeah.
Yes. And so I don't think I was actually slow, but teachers, they do so much harm sometimes. And she didn't require perfection in school, but she required perfection at home. And so perfection in school was like this shield. It like made me feel good about myself, and it made me feel like, oh, at least here, I think she'll be happy, But no, she always was like, I don't know why, you always felt the need to be best in the class.
So to compensate the lack of comfort or the fear that you felt at home, you started to build this fantasy life.
Yes.
Right? And fantasize about these boys that you would make up or that were in your dreams,
Yes.
or these boys. And what did you feel, and now looking back on it, what do you think that the fantasy did for you?
Well, I think it was the first signals of being a writer, because that's what being a writer is. It's like making up these elaborate stories in your head that like feel good. I don't know. They were very, very sexual and romantic.
At how old?
I'm sure they started when I was 6 or something. Like,
Oh, okay. That
sexual
young.
awakening for kids is young.
Right, yeah. I'm not judging. I'm curious. I'm trying to get the picture.
Definitely, I think when I was 9, it was like in full force. And like sexual when you're 9 is like kissing maybe, but like I remember I would have this dream where I was like a princess lying in bed, and there was this like row of suitors would like come and like make love to me one in a row. Like that was so prescient.
And, wait a minute. And how old were you when you had this dream?
I don't know. I can't have been older than 11.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But when you're 11, making love in your head is like, it's not necessarily as graphic as
right.
It turns out to be.
As it turns out to be. Right. What was like the next phase of the addiction for you?
Yeah, I guess when I started drinking, I was very shy around boys until that time because I was just very shy and socially anxious in general. And my girlfriends used to make fun of me for being such a prude, actually. But as soon as I started drinking, like I lost my virginity really soon after to like, because I was heartbroken over this boy that I'd been obsessed with for like 6 years. Truly had like built up this crazy stalker like fantasy in my head about us. And like we finally like danced together that night. And then at the end of the dance, he was like, "Thank you," and said goodbye. And I felt so rejected, even though that's not really rejection. But I thought we were going to kiss or something. So that night I went.
Just being a gentleman.
Yeah, or a normal teen. Yeah, exactly. But I felt so rejected that I went to like this after party and hooked up and like had sex with this like random boy that I didn't even like while I was blackout drunk. And that kind of really became a pattern of using alcohol and sex to self-soothe. And using alcohol to help me get through like sex with people I didn't want to have sex with. Yeah. And I think my addictions were all like at a manageable level of like being quite high functioning and just being like that messy girl that's always the drunkest girl at the party, or who's kind of like, oh, she's always kind of cheating on her boyfriends. And like I would have these stories that were a little bit concerning and people would be like, LOL. But it all came to a head when I first got married when I was 26.
Okay.
I'd always thought I might have a problem with sex and love. Like I'd Googled it when I was 23. I tried to be celibate for like a month because I felt like things were out of control. I mean, I'd always had issues. I was like sleeping with one of my bosses, like at my first job, and showing up to work like still drunk. And
well, it seems like maybe the way that you were able to, I don't know if sweep it under the rug is the best way to put it, but that you were such a high functioning person.
Yeah.
You had, since a kid, you were like, I'm going to be the best at everything.
Yes.
So on the surface, you could be like, look at all these things I'm accomplishing, but simultaneously there's this other.
Yes, exactly. It's such an archetype of an addict, the like super high functioning one. So I think I got lucky in a lot of ways because, at a different job, I might have gotten fired for showing up still drunk and for like sleeping with one of my bosses. But I worked in the tech world, so it was like a little bit more, let's say, HR didn't matter as much. And
why is HR not matter as much?
I mean,
in
it's
the
like at a
tech world?
startup, you don't have HR when you're a company of 10 people.
Got it.
Right?
Got it.
And
you were a coder.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, when I got married at 26, I was very in love with my first husband. And we got married maybe sooner than we might have normally gotten married because I'm French, I'm an immigrant, and we wanted the security of like marriage and a green card. We got married at City Hall so that we could apply for my green card. And then we had planned our wedding for 6 months later. And as soon as we got married, I had been faithful to him our whole relationship of 3 years. I was like really proud of myself. I was like, wow, this is the one, right? I'm like fixed.
And you hadn't at that point entered any sort of recovery or anything?
No,
like that. Right,
no.
right.
And like, I think my alcoholism.
Had you thought about it?
No.
Hadn't even
I mean, I had Googled sex and love addiction right before I met him because found that I was like unable to stop sleeping with people I didn't want to sleep with. Like, even like counting days on celibacy for a month, and then I couldn't make it beyond like 13 days, which is like, yeah.
And when you were practicing celibacy, was that strictly sex, or was it counting days for masturbation, or was it
just sex?
Just sex.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I did kind of, masturbation was never like a problem that affected my life in a very intense way. However, like, you know, in college when my girlfriends would call me on the phone, they'd be like, "Ugh, were you just jerking off just now?" Because like that was just, I was constantly doing that, but it didn't necessarily get in the way of my life. But it was, oh my God. And like when I was a teenager, I was like doing it in public places, like on the plane in my chair, bro. Like, that's intense.
That is
like you can't
intense.
fucking wait until the plane ride is over.
Or go to the bathroom.
But it was also, that's what's thrilling. That was thrilling, was like sneaking it in front of
Right.
everyone.
Right.
I was working
I
on
mean,
my.
I've definitely masturbated on hella planes, but I did it in the bathroom.
Yeah, no. Well, I think it would be hard for a man to like be that discreet.
I've never just done it in my chair.
under the blanket
Yeah.
with like a vibrator.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I've never actually heard anyone tell me that.
That's so funny.
That really is.
Yeah, so obviously like that was a thing for me, but it never felt like such an issue that I had to stop that.
Uh-huh.
But there have been times in my life where it's like I'm late to work because I'm, you know, jerking off, where like I can't.
I've never heard women refer to it as jerking off.
I feel like it's the funnest way to refer to it. Or like this is when I'm in the throes of a sex addiction with like a qualifier, which is like someone who maybe triggers the addiction. A
qualifier is.
My first sponsor was like, anyone you've ever hooked up with or had a romantic connection with is a qualifier. And I kind of honestly like that definition because then the problem isn't them, it's me. You know what I mean? Versus being like, I have only one qualifier. I'm like, really? Do you? Like, no.
Right.
But so a qualifier is someone who triggers the addiction.
So that sponsor would say that even if the relationship was a healthy relationship, that it was still a qualifier?
I don't think she believed that there was such a thing of any healthy relationship in addiction.
While you were, like, before you got sober?
Before I got sober,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
But masturbation, there have been times where, the times where it's been a problem for me is really when I'm in the throes of an addictive thing with a qualifier. With
Okay.
and then,
and the throes of, what does that feel like?
oh
Being
my God.
in the throes of an addictive
it's
thing
like
with a qualifier.
complete obsession,
With
right?
an individual.
Yes, with an individual or multiple, and euphoric recall of either fantasy over like a sexual encounter that we haven't had yet, which is
Okay.
like things I've had over like my professors, right? Or euphoric recall of like encounters we have had where it's like I'm thinking about it all day long and I'm just jerking off for hours all day long and I can't stop. Like that has been a problem. But usually it's not like a lifelong problem. It just kind of happens when I'm in an addictive pattern with someone. So that's my relationship to masturbation. But I've never felt like I was like, you can't do this. Like, but I know that that's a big part of people's recovery story. Some people, especially
sure.
men.
Yeah.
Like I know some men are like, no PNM.
Yep. PNM means porn and masturbation.
Yeah. So yeah, I got married when I was 26.
Where'd you meet your husband?
Okay, Cupid.
Okay.
Old
cute.
school.
Okay.
And we were very in love, and then we got married. And as soon as we got married, I started compulsively cheating on him with multiple people in my life, including my new boss.
Wow.
Like got married, started a new job like within weeks, flew to Bali for this job, and started an affair with him there.
Wow.
And that was truly the beginning of my self-destruction, like true addictive self-destruction spiral. Because within the 6 months of getting married and having our like proper wedding, I started an affair with my boss. I had so much shame around that I started sleeping with like other people as well. And like people that
Explain that. Explain the fact that the shame about sleeping with your boss actually made you want to sleep with more people.
I just like pain. Like the more pain, the more the need to make myself feel better. The problem, this is the fallacy of addiction, is
Right.
that we reach for the addiction to feel better, but the addictive behavior just leads to us feeling worse. Truly. And
right.
like just, and so then it's like this cycle that like it balloons, it becomes worse and worse because I have
Yep.
to do worse and worse things to feel the high of addiction.
Right.
And then my life gets worse and worse. And so the need to get high intensifies.
Yep.
And so,
And then hopefully, if we're lucky, we hit bottom.
yes, that's true. Ugh.
Right.
You know, that was like this intense feeling when I went to my first recovery meeting. That there were
So take
Yes.
me there. So when can we talk about your bottom?
so my bottom, interesting. So one of my bottoms was like the day of my wedding. 6 months.
Actually, you know what? I have another question.
Yeah.
Before we talk about your bottom. Why do you think that you were able to stay faithful for the first 3 years that you were together, and then as soon as you got married,
That's a great question.
you found the need to or desire
Yeah.
to cheat?
Well, it was fear of, at the time I thought, I'm just in love with my boss. He's my soulmate, right? No, I've had like 15 soulmates. They're not all my soulmate. What it really was is fear of commitment, fear of intimacy, ultimately because of my fear of abandonment. So because of the abandonment from my father figures growing up, my biggest fear is to actually love someone and be loved, like truly. Because if it's real deep love, like I had, for example, for a father, and then they leave, that's too unbearable. So that's why I just could not handle the idea of marriage and of like forever because it's too scary. And also my first husband, he was a wonderful man. I was very in love, but he wasn't necessarily the right person for me long term. And so it was a bit of like a safe choice of like, this person's never going to leave me, you know? And yeah, I just got triggered. The idea of forever commitment was too painful to me. And so I had to sabotage it immediately. And I didn't know this at the time. I just thought, I can't control myself. Like, I can't control these feelings. Like, if I don't sleep with this person right now, I'm betraying who I am, you know? And I was truly living this double life. Like, I was coming home to my husband being like, love you, which I did. I did love him, you know, not necessarily real love, because real love is like treating someone with love. But, you know, I had loving feelings for him. And then spend the day like pursuing other people. And even like the lies were getting so crazy. I'd be like, I have to go sleep over at my sister's house. She's like has a problem. And I was like on a date at the bar around the block.
Wow.
Like, I think it takes two to, you know, be in that kind of dance. Like, there's someone who's in denial and then there's someone who's doing the lying. But
So you think he was in denial? You think he knew?
no, I don't think he knew. I think I was obviously changing my behavior, and I was having panic attacks leading up to the wedding, being like, I don't think I can do this. And, you know, I think I was crying for help in some ways that were a little bit coded. And I think we both wanted to believe it would be okay. But Bill W., he said, there's two types of people. There's addicts and people who are addicted to us. And, you know, with every addict,
I love that.
there's
I never heard that.
yeah, there's a codependent person who is like has their own issues, and that's why they are attracted to an addict.
Yep.
Like, I truly believe both people in the couple are as sick as each other, just in a different way.
In different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now let's go back to the bottom.
The day of my wedding, I was like saying these vows to my husband, and in the audience was like my boss, who I was having an affair with, and I knew in my heart, I was like, I'm in love with that man.
So you had already started the affair by the
Yes.
wedding? Oh, wow. Okay.
There was like also other people that I was sleeping with who were there. It was a really strange day. That was like probably the height of my insanity, where
Wow.
I was like having this like ceremony to this man who I loved, but was more in love with this other man, and was just like going along with
Why
all
did
this.
these people get invited to the wedding?
Good question. I just wanted him there because I wanted to spend time with him. Like, that night, like my husband, he went to bed early because he was so drunk, and then I just kept partying with my boss. And then the next morning I got up early to go have breakfast with my boss while my husband was still in bed.
Wow. Okay, so you had your bottom the night of and you were 26.
That was like the beginning of my
Beginning of
bottom.
it.
The true bottom, basically the day that I ended up like going to my first recovery meeting. That was like a year later. At that point, soon after that wedding, I left my husband for my boss. Soon after that, you know, I lost my job and lost my marriage, green card, work visa, had to leave the country, had like lost half my friends, lost my home. Like, you know, so many people hated me for what I'd done to my ex-husband. It was like also no one understood. I was this like kind, honest person who just like out of nowhere had this secret, like very cruel double life. And it was just such
kind
a
of
shock.
honest person as far as they all.
Yes, exactly. Like who cared about
what they all thought,
who cared about
right.
taking care of people and who cared about social justice, all these values that I seem to have, like, and then I had this secret double life where I was living the opposite and no one understood. I didn't really
Well, I wouldn't
understand.
say values that you seem to have, values that you actually did have.
Yes.
But then also had this other thing.
It was like, oh, Alex is a good person. Oh, wait, no, she's a terrible person. That was kind of the like shift in people's perceptions
In
of
their
me.
perception.
Yes.
Right. Because it's very hard for people to see nuance.
Yes.
That's
And
the
because,
possibility that
well,
someone...
I thought I must be a terrible person. And what I learned is I was just a very hurt person in a lot of pain and who was, acting out with these addictions to soothe the pain and hurting other people. Like, I didn't want to hurt people. I didn't feel like, I truly don't believe anyone ever, it's rare that anyone intentionally tries to hurt someone else. It's usually out of a place of self-preservation, feeling like we need this to survive or to feel okay, right? So my bottom came when I was about to leave the country because of all these things I'd lost, because of all this chaos I'd caused. And there, at that moment, I was getting blackout drunk like almost every night, having like someone in my bed almost every night except Sundays.
You're how old at this point?
27, I think.
27? Okay.
Sundays, I would sleep alone because I was too exhausted. But other than that, and it was like I couldn't stop. Like I couldn't stop picking up people. Everywhere I went, I was like the coffee shop, the laundromat, whatever. I was just picking people up and it was too much. I remember someone...
Always men?
Yes.
Okay.
Vast majority, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Even like my friends who were married, like I was sleeping with like a stalker of mine who was like kind of physically violent, and I was complaining to my sister. I was like, why am I doing this? And she said to me, bitch, I think you have a problem and you need to go to a meeting. It took like a few weeks to gather the courage, and I went to my first recovery meeting right before I had to leave the country. I was 10 minutes late because I was so nervous, and I had like a few shots of tequila before because I was too scared. And I showed up in like such a skimpy outfit, like really inappropriate for the setting, like totally see half my bra. And everyone in the room was telling my story. And at the end, they're like, so smart that they're like, this is time for beginners, because beginners don't want to share. But then at the end, you've heard everyone's story. You're like, shit, maybe I can share. And then I got up. I still remember exactly what I was wearing, exactly who was there. I got up and I said, I've had the worst year of my life. And I don't know why. And I can't stop. And people in the room were like smiling at me with love and understanding. All my friends, they couldn't stand me. They kept being like, why are you doing this? And like these people, it was the opposite feeling. And they were, most of them like, okay. They had gone through all this stuff. And so there was like hope and understanding. That was the beginning of my recovery journey.
So looking back on it now, what would you say is the shift that happened from that first meeting?
I mean, the shift was...
What narrative might have been going on prior to that then got obliterated?
I think I came in being like, why is my life so unmanageable, but not thinking I necessarily had a problem? And I left being like, I think I might have this problem that all these people claim to have. And I think there might be hope. So that was the shift, was kind of like, before that, I really had no interest in living a different life. I just wanted the pain to stop, right? Like I was getting to a place of being suicidal from like all the chaos in my life.
Before you walked into that room and when you were in your period of being suicidal and all of that, did you see a correlation between how down you felt and the amount of sex you were having with different people? Did you feel like that was part of it? Or did you think that was actually just the solution to the problem of feeling like shit?
I had just done like this amazing acid or mushroom trip. I was really into psychedelics, and I would just like every maybe couple weeks do a ton of them like by myself in my room and like honestly jerk off for hours. I'd done this like mushroom trip a few weeks before this meeting, and my realization that I'd had was like, wow, people don't understand me. Like my friends are judging me, but I'm just living my best life. Like, so I was in a lot of denial. This is like the secret sauce to addiction, is the denial. Like I thought I was having these great sexual experiences with all these lovers, that I was in love with all of them, and that I was lucky to be living so sexually free and getting in dangerous situations. Like I was going on a date with someone, waking up in bed with someone else because I'd blacked out, not knowing what happened. and like feeling physically in pain, and that being kind of the only sign that I'd had sex the night before.
Wow.
Yeah. Like I was living a dangerous life, but thinking I was living my best life. But I was also feeling a lot of emotional pain from like the divorce and all that stuff. And I didn't understand why. I was like, I'm suicidal, I'm depressed. I don't know why, like it's a lot of denial. The sex and the drugs and the alcohol feeling like the solution to that, being like, anytime I feel something bad, I need to go on a date. Like it was so clear. I think the night before I went to my first meeting, or the few days before, I'd had this like intense panic attack because one of my lovers had like canceled our date. And so I was like texting all my other lovers just being like, who's free? Like I need to, be with someone tonight, and no one being available, and like just being like not able to handle that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The withdrawal.
So you have your shift that night where all of a sudden you have a moment of hope.
A moment of like thinking maybe I do have a problem and there is hope and I'm not alone. And I'm not, I don't know, maybe I'm not a bad person. I don't know. Yeah, it was like a very big shift.
So let's go back. So you're after your first meeting, what made you stay? What made you keep coming back?
Man, I mean,
because
there
a lot of people will come to a meeting, right? They'll have this experience where they're like, "Oh my God, this is me."
It's true.
All this shit like totally resonates, and
then it takes a while.
And there's hope in here, and then they don't come back.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I didn't come back immediately. Like I maybe went to one other meeting like a few weeks later, and then I had to leave the country. And
when you left the country, did you just keep the behaviors going?
I was like, I'm going to go on this eat, pray, love post-divorce trip, and I'm going to like recover from my addictions. I was like, I'm going to go to Kung Fu school in China. I ended up like getting hurt and having to like go stay with my dad in Hong Kong. And I was just like, I'm going to be celibate for 3 months, and I'm going to try to not binge drink, and I'm also going to lose 10 pounds, whatever. I had all these like lofty goals for like health. And within a few days of leaving Kung Fu school, I was like binge drinking. Whenever I would drink, I would like download Tinder. I would like start texting ex-lovers. I would like go home with someone. So I was kind of like, okay, I am not able to stop doing these like sex behaviors when I'm drinking. And I ended up so I was like, let me try to stop drinking for a month. And I went to my first like alcohol recovery meeting in Hong Kong. I really didn't think I had a problem with alcohol. My problem is with sex and love. And the thing is, they don't really have those meetings in Hong Kong. Like they had one a week, and I went there and there was no one there. So
they like to drink in Hong Kong.
Yeah. So the book, the like sex and love addiction recovery book, was like, if you can't find sex and love meeting, go to any other kind of addiction meeting, and it's the same message. So I end up at this alcohol recovery meeting. I'm hearing these stories and I'm like, fuck. Like this is like my relationship with alcohol. Like what? And I remember in that meeting hearing these like older men lost their whole families due to their alcoholism, like gone to prison. And I was just like, is this going to be me? And it was kind of one of those moments of like, I can try to stop now, or I can become these guys, right?
Right.
And I remember like all the women after the meeting came up to me, obviously newcomer, and we went to have coffee afterwards. And I remember saying like, I think I might, like my real problem is sex and love, but like maybe I have a problem with alcohol. And she said to me like, do the addiction, like treat the addiction that'll kill you first. So I was like, where do I start? I also like did a lot of drugs. And when she said that, I was like, oh, obviously sex and love. Like that'll kill me first, which is a weird thing to hear, but it's because I was going to kill myself. That became my focus, was recovering from that addiction. And that was basically when I started my sobriety journey. And I kind of got sober from a lot of things at the same time, because I knew I couldn't stop picking people up if I was drinking. So I was like, I have to also stop drinking just for a bit. I was like, for a month, so that I can get this shit under control. So I stopped drinking, doing drugs, and became celibate all on the same day, December 1st, 2018.
Wow.
And it was a crazy year. It was like, that's why I started drawing those drawings, because I was so bored and so much withdrawal. I couldn't believe how terrible life was without these addictions. And so I just like started drawing, which I hadn't done since I was a kid.
What were your withdrawal symptoms like? How did you know that you were going through withdrawal from these things?
I just like couldn't stand life. It was just like...
But you couldn't stand life before when you were doing them either.
Yeah.
So what was the difference?
It was like this physical discomfort, this like sometimes this very intense obsession over this thing that be like, I have to text this lover, I have to call this lover. Like, I can't, like, I'll die if I don't talk to this person now, or if I don't, like, you know, meet up with this person now. And I remember in those moments, like, my sponsor would say, just get on your knees and pray.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's a very kinky thing, to get on your knees and pray to have your sexual obsession with someone lifted.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a hot image.
I've never thought that. I get on my knees and pray every morning and every night. Never in my life have I thought to myself, this is kind of kinky.
But when it's about one person, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right.
that's...
It's going to change my whole relationship to it.
You know, prayer is kinky. God is doming you. No.
That's hilarious.
It was like the daily kind of like simmer of discomfort of being, it was like my life had lost all its colors.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like,
It's a beautiful way to put it.
in truth, my life was slowly regaining its colors.
Right.
But that's how it felt.
Right.
And it
was
felt,
it was losing the colors that you were familiar with.
it was because all these like wild chemicals in my brain that I was flooding my brain with every day with like fantasy, flirting, obviously like sex, porn, masturbation, but like alcohol, drugs, all that was just like from one day to the next, like gone. And so it was a daily discomfort, intense boredom. And then also sometimes there would be moments of intense withdrawal where I was like, if I don't go to this bar right now, if I don't meet up with this lover right now, I'm going to die.
Well, it reminds me of the saying that one of our people that we know says, which is, we were so afraid that uncomfortable feelings would kill us that we went and did things that actually might.
Yes, exactly. That's the fallacy of the addiction. It's like you think not doing the addiction will kill you, and then you end up killing yourself with the addiction.
Yep.
And then I started, a lot of us, you know, when we get sober, we are missing the like high of the addiction, so we really get into exercise because like you need to feel something.
Yep.
So then I became kind of,
You just also have a shit ton of energy.
yes, and you have so much time.
You have more bandwidth.
Yes, because all one can handle usually in early addiction recovery is not doing the addiction.
Right.
It's like a lot of us like don't really have jobs anymore.
Yep.
Like we don't even have our own apartment anymore. Like, you know.
That same person that I was just talking about, he has another saying which is I couldn't have an occupation until I dealt with my preoccupation.
Love that. Love his sayings. Like his sayings are amazing and life-changing. I'd always had an eating disorder, but like because my mom had an eating disorder, so she put me on my first diet when I was like 7, and I was always obsessed with being like as skinny as possible. I really had like, this is truly maybe my biggest issue actually. Like I spent most of my life starving myself. Like there was like a phase in my life where I was only eating a banana a day. There was a phase where I was like counting calories and only eating 800 calories a day. There were moments that are so gross because of what you do to your body when you don't eat. Like I won't even share, but whatever. That's a whole other part of my addiction story. And when I got sober, I started feeling the need to over-exercise to feel okay. So I was exercising 2 hours a day. And also, I used to really restrict what I ate. But when I was drunk and when I was hungover, I had to eat, you know? You know, when you're hungover, you have to eat.
Beast.
And so I was at least eating enough to survive on those moments. But so when I stopped drinking, I was really not eating. And I was over-exercising every day. And then I hit a bottom in my eating disorder where I lost my period because my body didn't have enough like sustenance to create the hormones needed for that. I became so starved. I started having to binge eat because like binge eating, a lot of people don't really realize this, is usually a response to like restriction.
Yeah.
It's like people binge eat because their body needs that food, because the body has been denied sugar, the body has been denied this or whatever. So it's not usually, the binge eating isn't the problem. The problem is the like restriction. Mm-hmm. And so I was so starved that I was like have these binge attacks where I'd spend like all night like ordering cookies because I didn't allow myself to have any of these like danger foods in the house. So I'd like order on Seamless like 10 snack foods, and they would arrive and I would eat them. And then I would be like, you're disgusting. I would throw them in the trash and I would eat them out of the trash. Mm-hmm. And those binge attacks were happening so often because of how starved I was, that I had to go into eating disorder recovery because I was going fucking crazy. That was probably the hardest addiction to recover from.
Really?
Yes.
Now, were you still going to other meetings?
Yes. I mean, I was like, you know how I was a straight A addiction recovery student. I was like, I'm going to be the best recovering addict ever. I'm going to be like the queen of addiction, and I'm going to do everything right. And so I was like doing a 90 and 90, which is when you do 90 meetings in 90 days. And I was like going to like a meeting every day probably. And it's funny because like in addiction, in early recovery, like I was doing all these very healthy things for myself, like meditating, drawing, going to meetings. But I was at the same time really self-destructive in other ways. And it's this interesting, people often say it's like you're playing whack-a-mole with your addictions when you first get into recovery. But it's this duality and this like level of denial that one can still maintain of like, I'm meditating every day and I'm sober and I care about loving myself. And that's really what my recovery journey has been about. It's learning to love myself and take care of myself. In some
Forgive
ways,
yourself 100 times a day.
in some ways I was acting with love towards myself, but in this other big way where I was like starving myself, like no. And both can be true, and that's very interesting.
And you probably tricked yourself into believing that you were loving yourself in some way by the starving.
I mean, I'm gonna protect this eating disorder for life because this is the price of beauty and this is the price of being loved. So when I got into eating disorder recovery and I like gained 30 pounds in 3 months because I was just like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. So I just started eating. I started practicing intuitive eating, which is like a life-changing way to eat, which is instead of having like rules around food, you just like eat what your body wants. And that's how one's body is meant to be fed. And because my body had been so starved, my metabolism was shot. And so like I just feeding myself what I needed to eat, which was a lot because I was so starved for so long. I just gained a lot of weight very, very quickly. It was this crazy process, like the biology of eating disorder recovery. Like I got night sweats because like my metabolism was rebuilding. Like my bones were hurting because like they were rebuilding. I got my period again, but because I hadn't had it in so long, then it was crazy. I got the worst PMS of my life. I had the worst acne of my life because I was going through puberty again because my like hormones were like being produced again. It was wild. It was a wild physical transformation. And it was kind of like convinced me I can never get into an eating disorder again because I'm not going through this again. Yeah, that was the most challenging aspect of addiction recovery because every day I would look at myself in the mirror and I would see my worst nightmare, which is like me not looking perfect or whatever I wanted to look like. I would have to face that. I would have to face that I was my worst nightmare and learn to love myself. And even though I found myself disgusting, obviously I wasn't disgusting, but you know, so painful. I would like cry every day in the shower because I hated my body, which is so sad. Dude, when I tell the story of my addiction recovery, it gives me so much compassion for myself because I still struggle in a lot of ways emotionally. Like I'm still totally a crazy bitch. But when I think about how much crazier I used to be, and I use the word crazy with love. It's like I've reclaimed it. When I think about all the ways I used to like hurt myself and really like kill myself, I'm like, okay, you're doing fine. You're doing great.
You're doing great.
Like the fact that I can eat 3 meals a day, fucking miracle. You know?
And you're sober.
Yeah, I mean, let alone that. The fact that I'm like been with my new partner for 5 years and I'm like faithful, happy, healthy relationship, miracle. 7 years sober, miracle.
Happy?
So, generally. I mean, pretty miserable, but yeah, sure.
Well, I mean, I know you say that kind of in jest, but what is still the misery?
The only thing that's making me miserable is my perfectionism. I'm making my first feature. God willing.
Yes, you are.
3 months to the day today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard. It's one of the hardest things I think a filmmaker can do in life is to make their first feature.
Mm-hmm.
The pressure I'm putting on myself because I'm such a perfectionist, because there's still so much self-love healing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's kind of like if my movie is bad, then I am bad and then I'm not worthy of being alive, right? Or whatever. I obsess over every single piece of it. I've been driving myself a little like nuts being like, this needs to be perfect. This needs to happen. If this doesn't happen, then la la la. And I think a healthy dose of that is needed in order to make good art. But then there's a level that becomes just self-destructive.
You really think there's a healthy dose of that? Because I have it too, and I don't know if there is. I'm not saying one is right.
It's hard to say, you know. I think
I personally, and this is, I was watching this interview with Rick Rubin, and he was talking about how in the creative process as a artist of whatever, you know, film, music, poetry, the audience has to be the last thing on your mind.
Totally.
He's like, make it for you. You need to like it.
Yes.
First and foremost. And I'm back in the studio now making music, and which is fantastic. And I'm making it from like this place, like thinking about the stuff that we're talking, you know, addiction, and it's all going into my. But it's as I'm getting in there and I'm writing these songs, it's this constant, like I'm constantly vacillating between what is the song that I want to make, that I want to listen to, versus what do I think they need to hear.
So real. And I truly agree. I believe the only way to make something someone else will like, first of all, is to make something I like.
Mm-hmm.
And my perfectionism still comes up there. Like, I might be the harshest audience, you know? Like, even for me, I want it to be as good as it can be. That this is the thing about addiction recovery, which is why I think it's very interesting that you're doing this podcast, and why I think it's very helpful for folks potentially is addiction recovery is not a linear process. And it's like, I always reach a plateau, and my addiction recovery practice works until my life gets bigger and new challenges are introduced, and then I have to learn to live life on life's terms.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm right now at one of those edges. I'm like doing something that is one of the hardest things I've done since I got sober, which is trying to make my first feature.
Not trying, making it your first feature.
And so many of my wounds are being revealed by this process of like the need to be perfect, the need to be good, and the need to be great. I always want to do the hardest thing, right? I'm really only fulfilled and interested in pursuing things that people tell me are like low-key impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So when everyone told me you can't be a coder, you'll never be a good coder, I was like, okay. And when people were like, you want to, at 30, you want to just randomly shift careers and like make movies? Like that's almost impossible.
Well, how did that happen? Where did that come from?
It's really because of my addiction recovery journey. It's one of the greatest blessings from this journey is started, you know, doing work around my like workaholism, which was another huge part of my story.
I could use that. I think that's my.
We've got meetings, dude.
Yeah,
saved my life. Truly
I've
saved
never
my
been to
life.
one, but that's.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you could use it. And
you see me.
I say it with love, you know.
I know.
I was like suicidal from how much work I was doing and how overwhelmed I was, how burned out I was. It was one of my like worst suicidal phases. And it's very connected to the like need to be great, need to be perfect.
Because anything less is not enough.
Not acceptable. Yeah.
Right. Not acceptable.
Yes. Who am I?
And then shame-inducing.
Yeah. Who am I if
Right.
I'm not great?
Right.
Just a regular schmo on the bus.
Right.
But that's okay. That's the journey.
But we
to accept myself as I am.
Right. That's the process of actually coming to believe that we are okay, just being one.
And all this work that I had pursued, being a software engineer, being like the founder and CEO of a nonprofit, these were things I was passionate about. I loved coding. I loved teaching.
What did you love about coding?
It's the perfect blend of creativity and logic. It's just so fun. It's like puzzles. And it's like you can make anything out of nothing. And it felt like I'd always been artistically untalented. And it was like my first art form that I was like, oh, I'm good at this. And like I can do anything. And it was also just challenging. And no one believed I could do it. And it's just, I just love being challenged.
Who is this no one that didn't believe you
just
could
like,
do it?
You know, people in my computer science department.
Okay.
Whatever. Some people believed I could do it. Some people really helped me.
Because I think that's one of the things that we often have a tendency to do. Like, I'm going to prove all these people wrong that all believe I can't do it. And meanwhile, there's like
Everyone's like cheering you
Yeah,
on.
there's like 20 people, and
Yes.
like maybe 3 of them don't actually believe you can do it. But
One of my drawings is like this pair of boxing gloves, and it says, "Who are you fighting?" And I am always
I love that.
like I am always trying to defeat something or
Yep.
someone. You
Yep.
know, like people become my enemy so easily.
Right. Meanwhile, you have way more allies probably than you do adversaries.
Who's the real enemy is in here.
Yeah.
So I'd always had these careers that I'd loved and been passionate about, but really I realized as I was healing in this workaholism, recovery program, that so much of my pursuits had been around needing to be great, needing to be the best, needing to save the world to prove that I was good, and that the thing that I had actually dreamt of doing my whole life was film. Like I've been in love with movies since I was a kid. It had like I took myself to the movies every week, and I would sit through the credits and I would read the names in the credits, and in the back of my head I would think maybe one day my name will be on this list. Meanwhile, spending all my time doing nothing having to do with filmmaking.
Right.
And so
Well, you were making movies in your brain.
there we go. And I had started to draw, and I'd started to really connect with art as a practice. And I'd started to realize like I actually want to spend my whole time making art. And I put on a one-woman show on the first anniversary of my sobriety date. It was the best day of my life. I had like my 365 drawings set up in this room, and then I had a 90-minute monologue with my drawings and like photos I'd taken that year.
So you were acting too?
I mean, I was performing. I was being myself. I wasn't acting, but I was performing. That was the day that I kind of realized, like, I think this is my higher purpose, is communicating my feelings, my pain to the world as an artistic experience. And people would say to me, like, you got to write a book, you got to write a book. And I'd be like, no, I want to make a film. And after saying that every day for a year, I was like, you have to actually try. And it was very scary. And at the same time, I was hitting a new bottom in my sex addiction recovery. And I ended up having to go to rehab briefly because I was in a situation where I'd relapsed in my sex addiction 2 years into sobriety, which was such an identity, a loss of identity. Being like, I'm the perfect recovering addict, counting days, being the president of like Greater New York region, whatever recovery program, being like the chair of like the beginners meeting, and then relapsing. And I was just like, who am I if I'm not a sober recovering addict? Right. It was, in a way, it was
not the best.
A beautiful lesson because like my day count became my higher power.
Yep, I can relate.
And like the recovery program had become my higher power in a way that wasn't necessarily helpful. Like,
I mean, better than the alternative.
Sure,
but
better
still
than
not.
me, better
Right.
than, the addiction. But then there's this like being addicted to like seeing myself in this way and of like doing like repeating these sayings that everyone was saying and believing that anything anyone was doing for their program that wasn't what I thought was the best was like they were wrong, right? There was so much judgment around different forms of addiction recovery, and relapsing was such a humbling experience of being like, do I still love myself if I fucked up? Am I still recovering in my addiction if I only have one day? Like if I can't string 2 days together? And so that was a beautiful lesson, and it felt like a nightmare, but in the end, it was what took me to rehab, and it was what led me to basically be like, fuck it, I am going to pursue filmmaking. So it was like a huge blessing. This is something I used to really not understand when I first started going to recovery meetings. People would be like, hi, I'm Alex, and I'm a grateful recovering addict. Grateful. And I'd be like, what the hell do you have to be grateful for?
Right.
I'm not grateful for any of this. And then after like a year, I was like, hi, Alex, gratefully recovering addict, because I learned to have so much gratitude for my bottom and for losing everything, because that's what actually brought me on the path to learn to love and take care of myself.
That's what created the shifts.
Yes, that's what led to pursuing filmmaking. And the day I came home from rehab, started writing the Thirsty Girl script, which is about a sex addict.
You want to tell us about the film?
Yeah, it is about a young Asian American woman living in New York who is a coder, and she's obsessed with sex and porn. And her life is like barely hanging on by a thread, but it is, until one day she gets a call from her estranged younger sister, who's a recovering alcoholic and drug addict. She just relapsed. She's at the hospital. So now our protagonist, Charlie, has to go take care of her sister, even though she really doesn't want to. And even though she has like big work stuff going on, she has to drive her from New York to a specialized rehab in Kentucky, which is where I went to rehab. And over the course of this road trip, all the memories of their childhood come up, trigger her. She tries to escape these memories, you know, and like by turning to her porn and sex addiction, makes it impossible for her to actually get her sister to rehab. It's very like funny and sad and like sexy and gross. It's like all of my beliefs and lessons about addiction turned into a movie. And the core message of the film is that addiction is the opposite of connection, which is something that someone we both know said in a meeting once. And it blew my mind. He said, the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. And what that means to me is two things. It's one, addiction comes from a place of disconnection, of not feeling connected, not feeling loved. And then the solution to addiction is a reconnection, is learning to connect to the people in your life, to yourself, to a higher power. And so that's the journey of the film. It's two sisters who are disconnected, who are in their addiction, who are forced to be together and truly reconnect. And that's what saves them. It's their love for each other.
What's your relationship like with your sister now?
Well, we were very, very estranged until I got sober, and I made amends to her. And I always say the greatest gift of my sobriety is my relationship with my little sis, my baby sis, which was the original title of the film, Baby Sis. Everyone hated it. But that's the heart of the film. And now we're super close.
In New York?
She actually moved out of New York right before I got sober to San Francisco, and she's been there for 7 years, and now she's moving back in a few months. So we're going to be together in the same city for the first time in a very long time. We used to live together in New York 2 blocks away, and we would see each other twice a year.
Wow. So now your life is obviously significantly different than it was. I mean, you've had recovery in multiple programs, and you are a filmmaker now. Is that your full-time thing?
Yeah.
Full-time filmmaker.
What I'm pursuing full-time.
Right. So you're a full-time filmmaker. And do you still practice? Do you still go to recovery? Are you still involved in it? Or what's your... How do you stay sober today?
I casually participate in recovery programs. Like I go to meeting once in a while. I have sponsees or like fellow travelers that I like connect with every week over the phone. I've been
primarily women?
Yes.
Yeah.
Only women.
Only women. Yeah.
That was something that I found so funny about recovery programs. When I first got sober, I was like, this is so gendered. And then I was like, you know what? Well, it works.
Yeah.
And
no, I mean, when I first got into the rooms, I was going to both, co-ed and men's meetings, and then after a while, I was just like, I don't need to be going to co-ed meetings. There's plenty of men's meetings that are being offered, and I can just focus on that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for those of us who can get triggered by the opposite sex, totally. Like I remember I would kind of get triggered by women and men when I first got sober. So then I found this like gay men's meeting that I loved. I mean, it wasn't like specifically for gay men, but a lot of gay men would attend. And I was like, this is great because I'm not intriguing with anyone here. How do I stay sober? I mean, honestly, lately it's been more of a challenge because I have so much stress from, this movie. So I've been reconnecting to my recovery programs. And I've been going to more meetings. I've been meditating more. I've been reading the recovery books. I'm back in therapy. My therapist a year and change ago was like, you're doing great. We don't need to do this anymore. And I was like, wow. Now I'm back in therapy. Started seeing my psychiatrist again. Yes.
Okay.
We're doing this new modality called EMDR that I think is really helping.
I've heard
people in recovery love this.
Yeah.
It's a very somatic kind of magical thing that's has to do with eye movements and releasing trauma.
And you find it helpful?
I've just started.
Okay.
My life is slightly more manageable week by week. So I've been really applying addiction recovery principles to my anxiety lately. I've been praying for my higher power to take away my anxiety and panic attacks. And you can apply addiction recovery concepts of being I'm powerless over this and I'm still believe that it can change, right? It's an interesting concept. It's almost antithetical, being I'm powerless over alcohol, I'm powerless over sex and love, I'm powerless over work, And yet I am still going to turn my life and my will over to the care of my higher power. And then my higher power is going to relieve me of this unmanageability.
Did you have a relationship with higher power before you got into recovery?
No, I was hardcore atheist.
Really?
That's the other best gift from my sobriety is a relationship with a higher power.
Atheist, like
Hardcore.
God does not exist.
I thought that people who were religious were stupid and crazy and or racist. Like it was honestly like atheism was a religion because I had such hardcore beliefs around it. The connection between like in America, Christianity and like a side of the political aisle. Like that was for me the association. But so very hardcore beliefs. Obviously like people of all cultural backgrounds are like very spiritual. And I believe spirituality on its own has nothing to do with like race and racism. I was very resistant. That was a part of recovery that I really didn't like. And I would refuse to say the word God in meetings. And I would like cringe when I heard it. And I would like do the work, do the journaling, do the talking, and be like, whatever. I'm trying to get so it's kind of like I have no choice but to be here because I think I'm going to kill myself. So I'm just, I'm just going to go through it. And then I had this experience on a plane. I was reading a book, a novel or a memoir called There Will Be No Miracles Here by Casey Gerald, which is one of my favorite books. It spoke to me directly. There was this passage in the book that was like, drop everything you're doing, retrace your steps, and figure out why you've been, essentially killing yourself. And he was speaking to himself, and it was the first time that I felt like the universe was speaking to me directly. And it caused this like break in my reality where I started to think, what if this only thing I've known for a fact my whole life, which is there is no God, what if that is untrue? And I almost had like a panic attack on the plane because I was just like, it felt like in this moment that there was something out there that cared about me and that like was trying to send me a message of love. And it was so scary. And that was the beginning of this seed of a relationship with a higher power. And it's funny how magical that is because to me, it was almost like this way for me to learn to love myself was to first believe that something out there loved me. And then I come to learn that like those are one and the same.
Yeah, your higher power doesn't care what your grades are or how well Thirsty Girl does in the box office.
Oh my God.
Like.
It's true. My higher power will love me even if the movie sucks.
Your higher power will, I believe that. Your higher power will love you even if the movie sucks. As will a whole lot of other people in your life.
Yes, exactly. I asked my husband that the other day. Will you still love me even if the movie sucks?
That's funny. It's the same thing you asked your mom.
I don't know. It's always inside me. This is the thing about my mom. She really loves me. She really loved me. And she just had a really, really tough childhood. More tough than mine, for sure, objectively. And so she was doing her best, and her best could be really hurtful.
Well, how is your relationship with her now?
It's better than it's ever been, and it's still complicated. But we talk.
Where is she?
She's in the Bahamas, retired.
That's where she lives.
We just had this moment over Christmas when I made amends to her. It was kind of a hypocritical amends because I was like, you're the one who should be making amends to me. But this is the beauty of recovery is I learned to...
Hal edited my amends to my mom.
That's why we need sponsors.
I read it to him because I was like, I think there's some blaming that I'm doing in here. Can you take a... And he was like, you don't need that. You don't need that line. You don't need it. And then he stripped it down and I was like, oh, I'm now only owning my side of the street.
And it's hard to make amends to someone who has hurt you.
Yep,
and knowing that they might never make an amends to you. And that's the most radical part of addiction recovery is learning self-forgiveness and learning how to heal hurt that people have done to you, even if they never apologize. And that's pain. That's hard. It's a lifelong journey. But so my amends to my mom was challenging because of that, but it was still heartfelt, apologizing for my part. And when I made amends to her, I was like, how can I make it up to you? Most important part of the amends. She said, I want you to start spending Christmas with me again. So every year since I got sober, I've been spending Christmas with my mom, for better or worse. And this Christmas, we had this big fight. It was awful. She screamed at me like she used to when I was a kid. It was so triggering. And then for the first time ever, she apologized to me.
Wow.
And I was crying and she was holding me. And it was like that moment where I started to believe in God. It was like the skies opened and something crazy was happening, something that my whole life I believed the opposite. And then this like little light shined through saying like, no, maybe you were wrong. And she was basically like, I'm sorry for screaming at you. And I was like, when you scream at me, it scares me. And she was like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry I've scared you. And she was saying, but my love is a safe place for you. And I started crying, and I was like, she was like, I'm safe. And I was like, why are you saying that? And she could tell when I said that, she could tell, oh my gosh, she's never felt safe with me. And so she said, I'm so sorry that you haven't felt safe, but I promise I love you, even if I haven't said it enough, or even if you don't feel it, I love you. It was a very beautiful but painful moment too, because if you've lived your whole life believing something and then someone tells you the opposite, it feels like, what have I been going through all this pain for? But it was a very beautiful and healing moment. But it's just a seed. You have to water it. Just because your mom tells you she loves you, it doesn't mean you're going to believe it every day. So I have to keep watering that seed, you know.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. This has been a really nice conversation.
Yeah. I'm really happy you came. It's a great day before my birthday gift.
Oh, dude.
Really appreciate it. And first guest on my show. It means a ton to me.
It's an honor. I'm so happy we reconnected.
Me too. Me too. Yeah.
And I can't wait for your movie. I know it's going to be really good.
It's going to be great. We're both going to be great. We'll be high-fiving at Sundance.
And so it shall be.
Yeah. That's it, y'all. Till next time.